AITA for being upset that my wife forgot my birthday and left me out of dinner plans. I'm Edward, 43, and Rachel was 40 when this happened. We'd been together for 15 years and married for 12. Until that night, I would have told you our marriage had problems, but not the kind that ends a marriage. We loved each other. We had routines I still miss. We could spend an entire Saturday doing errands, stopping for coffee, arguing about which movie to watch that night, and somehow turn it into a good day. Our recurring problem was her family, especially her mother, Marlene. For years, I thought the issue was simple. Marlene was intrusive, Rachel hated disappointing her, and I was usually the person who decided keeping the peace was easier than turning every boundary into a fight. That description wasn't exactly wrong. It was just incomplete. The morning of my birthday, Rachel canceled the dinner we'd planned together. It wasn't a fancy reservation or anything elaborate. I'd told her a week earlier that all I wanted was dinner with her, somewhere quiet, just the two of us. We hadn't been getting much time alone lately, and the disagreement about her mother had been sitting between us for weeks. Rachel had agreed immediately. "That's it," she'd asked. "That's it. No party. Please, no party." She laughed and said, "Dinner. Just us." That morning, while I was getting ready, she stood in the kitchen with her phone in one hand and told me, "Mom's having a rough week. Can we just do something another night?" I was disappointed, but I didn't want to make a birthday dinner sound more important than someone dealing with an upcoming surgery. "Is something wrong?" "She's anxious. Brooke's going over later." "Okay. Do you need to go over too?" Rachel hesitated just long enough for me to notice. "Probably." I looked at her. "Tonight." "I know. I'm sorry." There had already been enough tension around Marlene that week, so I said, "Fine. We'll do it another night." Rachel kissed my cheek and said, "Thank you." That was the version of the day I carried around until I came home. I figured Rachel would be at her mother's. Maybe I'd order something, watch TV, and let the birthday pass quietly. Instead, I opened the front door and heard voices from the dining room. At first, I genuinely thought Rachel might have changed her mind and planned a surprise. That thought lasted maybe 3 seconds. The table had been set nicely. Cloth napkins, serving dishes. A bottle of wine was open. Marlene was at one end. Brooke was sitting across from Rachel, and Nathan, Brooke's husband, was beside her. For plates. For glasses. For chairs pulled in close to the table. Our dining table seats 6. There wasn't even an unused setting pushed to one side. Brooke stopped talking when she saw me. Nathan looked from me to Rachel, then down at his plate. Marlene kept eating. Rachel gave me a look I couldn't read. I set my keys on the small table by the wall and asked, "What's this?" Rachel said, "Dinner." "I can see that." Brooke said, "Hey, Edward," but she sounded uncertain. I looked at Rachel. "I thought you were going to your mom's." "Plans changed." "Apparently." Rachel took a drink of water. "Don't start." That threw me more than the table did. I asked what was going on. "And I'm telling you, Mom didn't feel like being alone, so we did dinner here." Marlene said, "It's been a stressful week." I nodded at her. "I know." Then I looked at Rachel again. "You canceled our plans for this?" Rachel's mouth tightened. "We can do your birthday later." There was a pause, and then she gave a little half shrug, like the date had only just occurred to her. "Oh right, your birthday." I remember staring at her because the wording was so strange. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I know it's your birthday." Just "oh right." Like I'd reminded her there was laundry in the dryer. Marlene said, "Birthdays come every year, Edward." Brooke looked down at her plate. I asked Rachel, "Why didn't you tell me people were coming here? We've been talking about this all week." "No, we've been talking about your mother's surgery." "Exactly." I still didn't understand what she meant. I said, "I live here. I think I should know if 4 people are having dinner here." Rachel exhaled hard through her nose. "Can we not make this a thing right now?" I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. I'm not the one who invited people into the house without saying anything. Marlene said, "Nobody is trying to exclude you." I looked at the table. Nobody said anything for a second. Rachel stood up. "Come help me in the kitchen." I followed her because, at that point, I still thought we might have a private conversation where she admitted this was badly handled. She carried an empty serving bowl to the counter and spoke quietly. "You're making everyone uncomfortable." I just walked into my own house. You know what I mean. No, I don't. She opened the refrigerator and moved things around that didn't need moving. Mom's been upset. Brooke came over. Nathan came with her. I didn't think it needed to be a whole production. You canceled dinner with me and replaced it with dinner with them. I said we can do yours later. That's not really the part I'm stuck on. She looked at me then. For a second, I thought I saw embarrassment on her face. Then it was gone. Edward, please, can we just get through dinner? I said, am I supposed to eat? That question sounded ridiculous even as I asked it. Rachel looked toward the dining room. There are leftovers. I don't know why that was the sentence that got to me. Not because I was hungry. I wasn't. It was the casualness of it. The assumption that there was a place for everyone else, and I could take whatever remained. Then she added, actually, when we're done, can you put everything away and clean up? Mom shouldn't be on her feet much this week. Marlene had not had surgery yet. I just looked at Rachel. She said, what? I asked, you want me to clean up after this? It's your kitchen too. Right. Don't do that. Do what? That tone. I was quiet for a few seconds. Then I said, I'm going out. Rachel frowned. Where? I don't know yet. Edward. I went upstairs. I didn't slam anything. I didn't pack a suitcase. I took a small overnight bag out of the closet, put in a change of clothes, a toothbrush, my phone charger, and a few basic things. I remember standing there for a moment with the bag open because part of me felt stupid. I was leaving my house over dinner. That's how I framed it for about 30 seconds. Then I thought about the table again. For places. Not 5. I went downstairs. They were still eating. Brooke looked at the bag. Are you leaving? Yeah. Rachel stood. Seriously? I didn't answer her. I took a notepad from the junk drawer, sat at the kitchen counter, and wrote because I knew if I tried to explain myself verbally, the whole room would turn it into a family debate. I wrote, Rachel, I'm safe. I'm not coming home tonight. I'm not discussing our marriage with your mother and sister in the room. Do not send them to speak for you. This dinner is not the whole problem, but it made the problem impossible for me to ignore. I need space to decide whether there's still a marriage here worth discussing. I will contact you tomorrow. Edward. I left the note on the counter where she'd see it. Rachel followed me to the front door. You are being dramatic. I put on my jacket. You're really walking out on your birthday because dinner changed? I looked at her. I didn't think you'd leave, she said. I know. Then I left. I drove around for a while before deciding where to go. I had a friend who'd told me more than once that his spare room was available if I ever needed it. But I wasn't ready to show up with a bag and explain my marriage while I was still trying to understand it myself. So I went to a restaurant I liked. It wasn't expensive or fancy. It was just a place Rachel and I had been a few times where the food was good and nobody rushed you out. The host asked, just one. I said yes. For the first 10 minutes, sitting alone felt almost peaceful. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, and I ignored it. I ordered what I wanted. Nobody asked me to make room for anyone. Nobody told me I was being inflexible. Then the food arrived, and the relief wore off. I was eating alone on my birthday because I didn't want to sit in a house where my wife had decided I was an inconvenience to a dinner she'd hidden from me. That didn't feel triumphant. It felt humiliating in a quieter way. Rachel called 6 times. Marlene called twice. Brooke called once. There were texts too. Rachel, where are you? Rachel, this is ridiculous. Rachel, please answer me. Rachel, you're scaring me. That one made me respond. I'm safe. I'm not discussing this tonight. She sent back almost immediately. You can't just leave a letter like that and disappear. I didn't answer. Later, I drove to my friend's place. He opened the door, saw the bag, and said, guest room's clean. I said, thanks. He didn't ask me for the whole story. I appreciated that more than I can explain. The next morning, I woke up earlier than I needed to and lay there staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine. That's when the self-doubt started. 12 years. A marriage is a long time to compress into one terrible evening. I wondered if I'd crossed a line by leaving the letter. I wondered if using the phrase, whether there's still a marriage, had been too severe before talking to Rachel face to face. I wondered if I was doing exactly what I'd accused her of doing, turning a disagreement into punishment. My phone had a wall of messages. The first few were angry, then scared, then apologetic, then angry again. Rachel, I am sorry the dinner upset you. Rachel, I didn't mean for it to become this. Rachel, you humiliated me in front of my family. Rachel, please come home so we can talk like adults. Rachel, Mom was in tears after you left. Rachel, you don't get to threaten separation because I handled one night badly. The phrase, handled one night badly, sat there on the screen. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond right away. To explain why that night mattered as much as it did, I have to go back. When Rachel and I first got together, her closeness with her family was one of the things I liked about her. Marlene had strong opinions even then, but in the early years, Rachel could tell her no. One Thanksgiving before we were married, Marlene announced that she'd told several relatives Rachel and I would be at her house from lunch through dessert. We had already made plans to split the day between both families. Rachel didn't fight with her. She didn't insult her. She just said, "You can ask us. You can't volunteer us." I still remember Marlene's face. She was annoyed, but Rachel held the line. We kept our original plans. That sentence stayed with me for years because it made me trust Rachel. I knew Marlene might push, but I believed Rachel understood that once we were building a life together, some decisions belonged to us. And for a long time, she did. The problem was that the exceptions never really ended. A year later, if I said we already had plans, Rachel would say, "She's been through enough." If Marlene decided to come by and stayed until late, Rachel would say, "It's easier if we just let her." If I asked why a Sunday lunch had turned into an all-day visit, I'd hear, "Just this once." At some point, "just this once" became a phrase that meant I was expected to stop objecting. The biggest warning had happened about 2 years before my birthday. Marlene had a plumbing issue at her house that made part of it temporarily unusable. She stayed with us for about 2 weeks. I agreed to it. I want that part to be clear. Nobody forced her through the door. She needed a place to stay, and it made sense. But within days, it became obvious how differently Marlene and I understood the concept of being a guest in someone's home. She opened our bedroom door without knocking because she wanted to ask Rachel a question. She rearranged our kitchen cabinets because she said the layout made no sense. She invited Brooke over one evening and only mentioned it when Brooke was already on the way. She made comments about arguments she'd overheard between Rachel and me. Nothing she did was catastrophic by itself. There was no screaming match. She didn't destroy anything. She just moved through our home like the normal rules of privacy did not apply to family. When she left, I told Rachel, "I don't want to do another open-ended stay like that." Rachel had agreed. She'd actually said, "I get it." Next time we set an end date. That mattered later. Several weeks before my birthday, Marlene was scheduled for surgery. It wasn't life-threatening. It was the kind of surgery where the doctors expected her to recover well, but the first stretch afterward would be uncomfortable. She was anxious about pain, sleeping, getting around the house, and being alone. Her anxiety was real. I never thought she was making that part up. One night, Rachel and I were on the couch when she said, "Mom wants to stay here after surgery." I said, "For how long?" Rachel looked down at her phone. "Until she feels normal again." What does that mean? I don't know. A couple of weeks? Maybe longer. I didn't answer right away. Rachel said, Don't what?" "Make that face." "I'm thinking." "She's nervous." "I know." "She doesn't want to recover alone." "I know." So I don't think an open-ended stay is a good idea." Rachel stared at me. "Seriously?" I said open-ended. "You know she's not going to stay forever." "That isn't what I said." She stood and started collecting 2 empty glasses from the coffee table, even though we weren't done talking. I followed her into the kitchen. "I can drive her to and from the surgery," I said. "We can bring meals. You can stay with her the first few nights if she needs that. I can go over every day. Brooke can take days too. I'm not saying we leave her alone." Rachel put the glasses in the sink. "She wants to be here." "I know. Because she feels safer here." "I understand that." "Then why is this such a problem?" I reminded her of the last stay. Rachel immediately said, "That was different." "How?" "Her house was a mess. She was stressed. She's going to be stressed after surgery too. That's not fair." "I'm not trying to punish her." I'm saying I don't want someone moving in for an undefined amount of time. She's my mother, Edward. And this is our home. Rachel turned around. You always make it sound so formal. That was new. What does that mean? Everything has to have a rule, a time, a boundary. After the last stay, you agreed with me. That was 2 years ago. Did something change? She didn't answer. The conversation ended badly, but not explosively. The next day, Rachel told me she'd thought about it and said, "Okay, I understand why you're not comfortable with no end date." I asked if she was actually okay with the alternatives I'd offered. She said yes. For a day, I thought the problem was settled. Then she talked to Marlene. I don't know exactly what was said in that first conversation, but Rachel came home colder. She asked, "Do you realize how rejected Mom feels?" I said, "I offered to help her. That's not the same." What is she asking for besides staying here? She wants to feel like she belongs. She does belong in the family. That doesn't mean she lives here. Rachel looked frustrated. You hear yourself, right? Yes. You sound like she's some neighbor asking to use our guest room. I sound like someone who remembers the last time she lost Dad. That stopped me because I knew grief was the argument I wasn't supposed to touch. I said, I know she did. Then maybe you need to understand how this feels from her side. About a week before my birthday, I asked Rachel if we could at least have dinner alone that night. She looked tired but softened. Of course. No family dinner. She gave me a look. I know what alone means. I just want us to have one normal evening. We will. That was the promise she broke. The day before my birthday, Brooke texted me. Hope tomorrow isn't too awkward. I remember looking at the message and assuming she meant the surgery situation. I wrote back, me too. She sent a thumbs up. That was it. I didn't think about it again until after the dinner. The morning after I left, once I had stopped rereading Rachel's messages, I finally wrote back. I need one answer. Why was there no place set for me? She didn't answer for 20 minutes. Then, because I thought you weren't eating with us. I replied, I didn't know there was an us. She called immediately. I let it ring once, then answered because I didn't want to conduct our marriage through text. Where are you? She asked. I'm safe. That's not what I asked. I'm staying with a friend. Who? I'm not getting into that. She was quiet. Then she said, I'm sorry about last night. I waited. It got out of hand. How? What do you mean, how? What part got out of hand? She made an irritated sound. The whole thing. You came in upset. Mom felt attacked. I got defensive. I didn't attack your mother. You were obviously angry. I asked why there was a dinner in my house nobody told me about. You knew things were tense. That's not the same thing. Edward, I apologized for how it came across. What do you want me to say? I said, I want you to tell me why my place wasn't set. I just did. No. You said you thought I wasn't eating. Why did you think that? Because our plans were canceled. By you. Yes. And you never told me there was another dinner. Because I knew you'd make an issue of it. That sentence landed harder than I expected. So you hid it because you knew I'd object. I didn't hide anything. You canceled our birthday dinner and told me you were going to your mother's. I said she needed support. At our house. She sighed. You're focusing on every word. I'm asking what happened. You're making this bigger than it was. I sat on the edge of the guest bed. Did you forget my birthday? There was a pause. I didn't say I forgot. I thought about, oh right. You acted like you did. Because you walked in already looking offended. I walked in confused. You embarrassed me by leaving. I left quietly. If that embarrassed you, maybe ask why. She was silent. Then she said, you left a note threatening our marriage. I said I needed space to decide what we were doing. Same thing. No, it isn't. 12 years, Edward. 12 years. And you leave because I handled one dinner badly. I almost apologized. That's how automatic the old pattern had become. She was upset, so I felt responsible for making the situation smaller. Instead, I said, I'm going to call you later. Don't hang up on me. I'm not hanging up because you're wrong. I'm hanging up because this isn't going anywhere. You don't get to decide that by yourself. I get to decide whether I stay on a phone call. I ended the call. For the next hour, I felt awful. Not powerful. Awful. My friend made coffee and asked, "You need advice or just caffeine?" Caffeine. Good, because I don't know enough for advice. That was the closest thing I had to emotional wisdom that morning. Around noon, Brooke called. I almost ignored it because I'd specifically told Rachel not to send her family to speak for her. But Brooke left a voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Rachel didn't ask me to call. I actually don't think she'd want me to. Can you call me when you can? I think I misunderstood something." I waited maybe 10 minutes, then called. Brooke answered immediately. "Hi. What's going on?" She took a breath. "Did Rachel tell you what dinner was?" "What does that mean?" "Before yesterday." "No. Nothing. She told me in the morning that she was canceling our birthday dinner because your mom was having a hard week." Brooke didn't respond. I said, "Brooke?" "Okay." "What? I thought she told you." "Told me what?" There was another pause. Brooke said, "I thought you knew dinner was supposed to make a point." I stood up without realizing it. "What point?" She sounded uncomfortable now. "About Mom feeling excluded." I didn't say anything. Brooke kept going. "Rachel told me you knew there was going to be a family dinner and that your birthday thing was moved." "Moved where?" "I don't know. Later. Another day." "And what was the point?" Brooke said, "Mom's been upset about the recovery thing. Rachel said you weren't understanding how it felt to be told you couldn't stay with family." I said, "I offered to help her." "I know that now." "What do you mean now?" "I mean Rachel made it sound like you were basically refusing to have Mom around." I closed my eyes. "What did you think I knew about last night?" Brooke hesitated. "I thought Rachel had told you we were doing dinner there. And that it was supposed to be kind of a lesson." The word made me angry in a way the birthday itself hadn't. A lesson. I know how that sounds. How is it supposed to sound? I'm not saying what we did was okay. What exactly did you think I knew? She said you'd already been told and you weren't happy, but you'd be there. I thought about Brooke's face when I'd walked in. "That's why you look surprised." "Yeah." "Because you thought I knew." "Yes." "Did Nathan know?" "He knew there was tension. I don't think he knew all of it. I told him Mom and Rachel were upset with you and dinner might be awkward." "And the place setting?" She went quiet. "Brooke, I thought you knew." "That isn't what I asked." "No, it wasn't accidental." I sat back down. "Who decided that?" "I'm not sure I should be in the middle of this." "You called me." "I know." "Then don't call me and give me half of it." She sighed. "I didn't hear every conversation. I was there 2 nights ago when Rachel and Mom were talking. Mom said she felt like an outsider in her own family. Rachel said maybe you needed to understand what that felt like." The phrase again. "Then what?" "I said we could just do dinner somewhere else. I didn't want it at your house because that seemed weird." Good instinct. I should have pushed harder. "What did Rachel say?" Brooke's voice got lower. "She said doing it, there was the point." I didn't speak. Brooke added, "I really thought you had been told." I asked one more time, "Was my birthday part of it?" "Yes." That answer changed the entire night. Until then, as angry as I was, there had still been versions of the story where Rachel had made a selfish decision in the moment, where the missing place setting was thoughtless, where, "oh, right," was a defensive response to being caught. Those possibilities disappeared. Rachel had remembered. She had planned around the date. She had canceled our dinner. She had let me come home not knowing. And she had been waiting to see whether I understood the message. I thanked Brooke for calling. She said, "I'm sorry." I told her, "I don't know what to do with that yet." Fair. Before hanging up, she said, "For what it's worth, you didn't make a scene." I almost laughed. "I know. Nathan said the same thing. He's annoyed because Mom keeps saying you exploded." I walked out. "I know." When we hung up, I sat there for a long time without moving. Then I replayed the dinner. Brooke stopping mid-sentence. Nathan looking confused. Marlene staying calm. Rachel saying, "We've been talking about this all week." Technically, they had. They had been talking about Marlene's feelings all week. I just hadn't known my birthday was going to be used as an instructional aid. I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. "Are you coming home?" No. Edward. I talked to Brooke. Silence. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. Long enough. Rachel said, why? She called me. I told everyone not to get involved. Interesting. Don't. Was dinner supposed to teach me a lesson? Brooke misunderstood. Did she misunderstand that you told her I knew? Rachel didn't answer. Did you tell Brooke I knew about the dinner? I told her you knew we were dealing with Mom. That's not what I asked. You're interrogating me now. Answer the question I asked. She said, I don't remember exactly how I phrased it. Was my place left unsaid on purpose? Edward. Yes or no? This is so much more complicated than you're making it. Was it? She raised her voice. I was trying to get you to see another side. That was the first real admission. I said, by excluding me from dinner in my house on my birthday. When you say it like that, it sounds horrible. How would you like me to say it? It wasn't supposed to be some humiliation. Then what was it supposed to be? A point. What point? That Mom has felt pushed away by you. I said no to an open-ended stay. You made her feel unwanted. I offered rides, meals, errands, visits, staying at her house, even a fixed stay here. She didn't want to feel managed. So you decided I should feel unwanted instead. I didn't decide that. You just said you were trying to get me to see another side. That's not the same. Rachel, did you remember my birthday when you planned the dinner? She stopped talking. That silence was not yet the final answer, but it was close. She said, of course I remembered. I held the phone tighter. Then why did you say, oh right? Because I was angry. At me? Yes. Because I wouldn't agree to your mother moving in. Because I felt like you didn't care what this was doing to me. There it was. The argument had changed. This wasn't about Marlene's surgery anymore. It was about Rachel feeling trapped between us and deciding the way out was to make me hurt enough to give in. I asked, did you tell Brooke I knew? Rachel said, why are you so obsessed with Brooke? I'm obsessed with the fact that my wife lied to her so she'd participate. I didn't lie. You told her I had been informed. I thought you understood where things were headed. That's not information. You always do this. Do what? You make everything literal. Every sentence becomes evidence. I said, we're done talking for today. Edward, don't hang up. I need time. How much? I don't know. You can't keep me in limbo. I almost said, you kept me in the dark. I didn't. Not every moment needs a comeback. I just said, I'll contact you tomorrow. Then I ended the call. 3 days after the dinner, my cousin called. He and I aren't especially close, which is why the call was strange. Hey, he said, everything okay? Depends on what you heard. He sighed. Rachel's aunt said you walked out because she forgot your birthday. I closed my eyes. She didn't forget. Oh, did you call to mediate? No, I just thought that sounded unlike you. Good. He laughed awkwardly. So what happened? I almost said it was private. Then I realized that was exactly how the false version would harden into the story everyone repeated. So I gave him the smallest version I could. She didn't forget. She canceled our plans and hosted a family dinner at our house on purpose because she wanted me to feel excluded after I set a boundary about her mother's recovery stay. I left. That's all I'm going to say. He was quiet. Okay, he said. That's different. Yes. I won't ask for more. Thanks. 2 other relatives contacted me over the next week with versions of the same story. I gave them roughly the same answer. No screenshots. No forwarded messages. No long explanation of our marriage. Just enough to correct the lie. Rachel was furious when she found out. You told people private things about us. You told them I left because you forgot my birthday. I didn't tell everyone that. Someone did. Mom was upset. That doesn't answer me. She said, you could have come to me. I did. You kept minimizing it. That doesn't give you the right to make me look cruel. I said, I told them what happened. Your version. If there's a factual part that's wrong, tell me. She didn't. Then she said, this is exactly why I feel like I have to defend my family. You always make yourself sound reasonable and everyone else sound crazy. I said, I didn't call anyone crazy. You know what I mean. I told 3 people who contacted me that the dinner was deliberate. You didn't have to. No. I could have stayed quiet while your version became the truth. About a week after the birthday, Brooke called again. She sounded embarrassed. I need to tell you one more thing. What? I talked to Rachel. Okay. She says I'm making it sound worse than it was. I didn't answer. Brooke continued. I told her I'm not going to keep calling it a misunderstanding. Why are you telling me? Because I should have told you the first time. I waited. Rachel was the one who said not to set a place for you. I felt something in me settle. Not break. Settle. There had been so much argument around intent that one specific detail gave the whole thing a shape. I asked, you heard her say that? Yes. What exactly did she say? Mom asked whether that was too much. Rachel said it would make the point clearer. I stared at the wall. Brooke said, I know I was there. I'm not pretending I wasn't. Why did you agree? I didn't think you'd be blindsided. That doesn't really make it okay. I know. You were still fine with using my birthday to make me uncomfortable. I was. At least she didn't dodge it. She said, I thought you knew. I thought this was one of those stupid family things where everyone was annoyed but had agreed to be in the same room. I should have asked you instead of assuming. Yes. I'm sorry. I believed her. That didn't mean I suddenly trusted her. There's a difference. Before we ended the call, she said, Nathan wants no part of any of this. Reasonable. He did say if anyone asks, he's telling them you didn't yell. Also reasonable. He keeps saying, he picked up a bag and left. That's what I saw. I almost smiled. That sounded exactly like Nathan. A few days later, Rachel asked me to come home for a private conversation. She said, just us. I asked, your mother will not be there? No. Brooke? No. Anyone else? No. I agreed. Not because I planned to move back in. I wanted to hear Rachel take responsibility without an audience and without Marlene correcting her feelings in real time. I got to the house around 7. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Marlene's car. I sat in mine for a full minute. I almost backed out. Then I thought about Rachel, years earlier, telling her mother, you can ask us. You can't volunteer us. I wondered when that version of her had stopped showing up. I went inside. Rachel was in the living room. Marlene was on the couch. Brooke was sitting in a chair near the window. Nathan wasn't there. I looked at Rachel. You said private. Rachel stood. I know. Then why is your mother here? Because she's part of this. No. Edward, please. I stepped toward the door. Marlene said, if you leave every time someone wants to talk to you, nothing gets solved. I stopped. Brooke looked at Rachel and said, you told him I wouldn't be here? Rachel said, I didn't know you were coming until Mom asked you. Brooke looked annoyed. You texted me. Because Mom wanted you here. That's still you inviting me. I should have left. Part of me still thinks I should have, but I was tired of separate versions of the same event. Rachel told me one thing. Brooke told me another. Marlene told relatives another. I decided I wanted the truth said once in front of everyone involved. I put my keys on the table. Fine. One conversation. Rachel looked relieved. I added, nobody is negotiating my marriage for you. Marlene opened her mouth. I said, that includes you. She leaned back. Rachel said, can we sit down? I stayed standing for another second, then sat in the chair farthest from Marlene. Rachel started. I know I handled your birthday badly. I said nothing. She continued. I know canceling our plans and having dinner here without explaining it was wrong. Marlene said. She already apologized for that. I looked at Rachel. Is she going to keep doing this? Rachel said, Mom, please. Marlene held up a hand. Rachel went on. I was angry. I felt like every conversation about Mom ended with you setting a rule and me having to accept it. I said, we both live here. I know. Then why does my no count as a rule, but your yes count as compassion? Rachel rubbed her forehead. That's not what I mean. Okay, what do you mean? I mean, I felt like there was no room for what I was feeling. I nodded once. That's fair. I probably didn't ask enough about that. She looked surprised. I meant it. Marlene said, The point was that family goes both ways. I turned to her. I said, the point was that you rejected what I asked for. Yes. She stared at me. I said, those are not the same thing. That's the problem. You think saying no to one request is saying no to you. Rachel said, can we stay on the birthday? Please. She took a breath. The dinner was supposed to make a point. Brooke shifted in her chair. Rachel saw it and said, not like that. Brooke said, then what was it like? Rachel looked at her. You were there. Yes, and you told me Edward knew. I said he understood what was going on. Brooke frowned. No, you said you told him. I told him Mom was upset. That isn't what you told me, Rachel. Marlene said, why does this matter now? I said, because Brooke participated based on a lie. Rachel turned to me. Stop calling it a lie. What should I call it? I thought you knew what I meant all week. I said, I knew your mother was upset. I didn't know my wife was planning a dinner to punish me. It wasn't punishment. What was it? A point. What point? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. That being left out hurts. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. I asked, left out of what? She looked frustrated again. Family. I said, your mother wasn't left out of the family. She was told she couldn't move into our house without an end date. You don't understand how that felt to her. Then explain it. Talk to me. Ask again. Get angry. Go to counseling. Do any of those things. My voice was louder now, but I wasn't shouting. You don't take my birthday, cancel our plans, invite everyone here, leave my place unset, and then act like you forgot the date so I'll understand your mother better. Rachel said, I didn't think it would go that far. Brooke said quietly, you said leaving the place unset would make the point clearer. Rachel looked at her. Brooke. I'm not saying what we did was okay. You don't have to throw me under the bus. I'm saying what happened. Marlene said, nobody was trying to hurt him. I looked at her. How do you teach someone exclusion without hurting them? She frowned. It was one dinner. On my birthday. You're 43. I almost responded, but Rachel cut in. Mom, stop. Marlene looked offended. Rachel turned back to me. I was angry. I thought if you experienced even a little of what Mom was feeling, maybe you'd stop treating everything like a boundary negotiation. I asked, so you wanted me to feel excluded? She looked at me. I wanted you to understand. That's not the question. Edward. Did you want me to feel excluded? Her voice dropped. For a moment. Yes. That was the clearest answer she'd given me. I nodded. Then I asked the question that had been sitting underneath every conversation. So you did remember my birthday? Rachel opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Marlene said, of course she remembered. That's why it was supposed to mean something. Brooke closed her eyes. Rachel looked at her mother. Mom. But it was done. Not because Marlene revealed anything I didn't already know. Because Rachel could no longer hold both versions of the story at once. She couldn't say the birthday was an accidental casualty of family stress, while also saying the timing was chosen to make the lesson matter. She remembered. The empty place mattered because she remembered. The fake, oh, right, mattered because she remembered. The leftovers mattered because she remembered. The cleanup request mattered because she had expected me to absorb the entire thing and return to my normal role before the dishes were even dry. Rachel started crying. I didn't think you'd leave. I said, I know. She shook her head. I thought you'd be angry. I thought we'd fight. I thought you'd finally understand why I was so upset. And then... What? After I understood. What was supposed to happen? She looked lost. I answered for her. I was supposed to give in. No. Then what did you want? I wanted you to care. I did care. Not enough. That's the answer, Rachel. I didn't care in the way you wanted. So you decided pain might get you there. That is not fair. Maybe not. I was tired. Not angry anymore. Just tired. Marlene said, this is getting blown completely out of proportion. I looked at Rachel. Do you agree with her? Rachel didn't answer. That was enough. I stood. Rachel stood too. Please don't leave like this. I'm leaving exactly like this. Edward, we can fix this. I don't know if we can. You haven't even tried. I looked around the room. Her mother was there after Rachel had promised she wouldn't be. Her sister was there because Rachel had texted her. We were standing inside a perfect demonstration of the problem. I said, I asked for one private conversation. Rachel wiped her face. I thought having everyone here would clear things up. It did. She flinched. I immediately regretted the sharpness of that answer, even though it was true. I picked up my keys. Rachel followed me to the door. Will you at least come back tomorrow? No. Then counseling. I paused. Maybe. Together. Yes. She looked relieved again. I said, one session at least. To communicate about separation and next steps. I'm not promising reconciliation. Her face changed. So you've already decided. I haven't decided everything. You came here planning to leave me. I came here hoping you would take responsibility without your family doing it for you. I am taking responsibility. You invited them. I panicked. I believe you. Then why are you punishing me? That word mattered. I said, I'm not separating to punish you. It feels like punishment. I know. Then what is it? A consequence. She stared at me. You sound so cold. I probably am colder than usual. 12 years, and this is what I get. I almost answered defensively. Instead, I said, 12 years is why this hurts as much as it does. Then I left. We did go to counseling once soon after that. It was not a session where someone declared a winner. Rachel said I had become emotionally unavailable, and I admitted that was true. I said she had turned a marital disagreement into a family campaign, and she did not deny it. When the counselor asked what Rachel expected the birthday dinner to accomplish, Rachel finally said she thought I would be angry, we would talk, and I would reconsider letting Marlene stay. That answer mattered because it confirmed the dinner had been designed to change my decision, not simply express hurt. I also admitted that I had spent years confusing the absence of a fight with healthy communication. We left separately, with more clarity but no repaired trust. Over the following weeks, our conversations became practical. I picked up clothes and personal things in small trips. Sometimes Rachel and I slipped into an old joke or an easy conversation, and, for a few minutes, I wanted to stay. Those moments were harder than the arguments. Leaving someone does not erase the version of them you loved. The strangest part was how normal some moments felt. One afternoon, I went to the house to pick up a box of books. Rachel was there. She said, "Do you still want that ugly lamp from the den?" I said, "It's not ugly. It's absolutely ugly. You bought it." I was 28. So. I had poor judgment. We both laughed. About a month after the birthday, Rachel asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed. She looked exhausted. She didn't start with, "I didn't mean it that way." She didn't say, "You made me feel trapped." She said, "I need to apologize without explaining it." I waited. She took a breath. "I remembered your birthday." I nodded. "I knew you wanted dinner with me." I nodded again. "I canceled it because I was angry about Mom." Her eyes were wet, but she kept going. "I knew leaving your place unset would hurt you. That was why I agreed to it. I told myself it wasn't cruelty because I thought I was making you feel what I thought Mom felt." I didn't interrupt. "I lied to Brooke by making her think you'd been told. I did that because I knew she probably wouldn't go along with it if she thought you were walking in blind." That was new only in how directly she said it. "I told myself you were being stubborn and that I had tried talking. I told myself I was stuck between you and Mom. I told myself one bad night would make you understand." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't think you'd leave. I know. I don't say that to blame you. I mean, I counted on you not leaving." That sentence hurt more than I expected. She continued. "I counted on you being angry and staying. I counted on you calming down first. I counted on you being the one who made things normal again." I looked out the window for a moment. That was our pattern stated plainly. She said, "I'm sorry." I believed her. "I still do." I said, "Thank you." She looked at me, waiting. I knew what she wanted. Not instant forgiveness exactly. A door. Some sign that honest remorse earned access back to the marriage. I couldn't give it. "I believe you're sorry," I said. She started crying. "Then why isn't that enough?" Because sorry doesn't tell me what happens the next time your mother is scared or angry, and I say no. I would never do this again. I believe you believe that. That's not fair. Maybe not. You're never going to trust me. I don't know. Then what are we doing? I took a long breath. I think we're separating. She covered her face. I hated myself for causing that pain, even though I knew I wasn't responsible for all of it. After a minute, she said, "You won't even try again." I did try for years. Not in the right ways, maybe. I gave in. I went quiet. I waited for things to pass. I should have been more direct earlier. So this is partly your fault. I looked at her. She immediately shook her head. That came out wrong. It came out honest. No, I mean, I am trying to understand how we got here. So am I. I don't want this to be over because of one birthday. It isn't. She looked at me. I said, the birthday is the first time I knew the pattern wasn't just happening around you. You used it. She started to respond, then stopped. That was probably the hardest truth for both of us. For years, I had treated Rachel as someone trapped between a difficult husband and an overbearing mother. Then I learned she had stopped being only the person in the middle. She had learned to use the system too. Not because she hated me. Not because she wanted a divorce. Because she believed I would always stay and eventually bend. We lived apart after that. The separation was not clean in the emotional sense. Living apart was painful in ordinary ways. I missed reaching for my phone when something funny happened and caught myself almost driving home out of habit. Brooke and I spoke occasionally, but she never became my ally against Rachel. She apologized for participating and admitted her relationship with Rachel had become strained because she refused to keep calling the dinner a misunderstanding. She also started setting small limits with Marlene, mostly by refusing plans made on her behalf. Marlene never fully changed her view. She still thought I was too rigid and that the family had become too formal. Her surgery went well, and she recovered at her own home with Rachel and Brooke rotating help. The alternatives I had offered before my birthday turned out to be workable after all. I did not feel vindicated. I mostly felt sad that we had damaged a marriage trying to force an answer to a problem that never required one. Months passed. Rachel's apologies changed. She stopped saying misunderstanding. She stopped saying how it came across. She stopped saying she was only trying to help me understand. Eventually, she could say, I chose to hurt you because I thought it would get a result. That was honest. It also didn't restore the thing that had broken. We had another counseling session focused less on reconciliation and more on how to communicate without reopening the entire argument every time. Rachel asked again if there was any chance. I told her I didn't know what the future looked like, but I wasn't willing to resume the marriage. She said, so that's it. I said, that's where I am. She cried. I didn't move toward her. That sounds cold when I write it. Maybe it was. But for years, someone's distress had been enough to make me abandon my own position. I was trying to learn that another person's pain is not always proof that you've done something wrong. I didn't feel proud of it. I just didn't move. A few weeks before my next birthday, Rachel sent me a short message. I won't ask you for anything. I just want to say I'm sorry again. I know what I did last year, and I know I can't undo it. I hope this birthday is peaceful. I read it at work. I didn't answer until that evening. Thank you. That was all I had. By then, the separation had become less dramatic and more administrative. We weren't in constant conflict. We weren't secretly dating again. We weren't enemies. We were two people who had loved each other for a long time and had reached a point where love wasn't enough to make trust automatic. I still sometimes wondered if I had escalated too quickly that first night. Maybe I could have stayed. Maybe I could have confronted Rachel at the table. Maybe I could have gone upstairs, cooled off, and talked to her after everyone left. Maybe the letter was too severe. I can see why someone would think that. But I also know what probably would have happened if I stayed. I would have cleaned the kitchen. Not because Rachel deserved it. Because that's what I did. I cleaned up the emotional mess after everyone else was done. I translated Marlene's pressure into anxiety. I translated Rachel's surrender into compassion. I translated my own resentment into patience. Then I waited until I could tolerate everyone again. Leaving that night was the first time I refused to make everything normal before anyone had to face what had happened. My next birthday was quiet. 2 friends took me to dinner. Nothing fancy. No surprise. No big speech. We sat at a small table near the back and argued about whether to order dessert. At one point, the server came over with menus and looked behind us. Are we waiting on anyone else? I looked at the two people sitting with me. 3, I said. That's everyone. The server nodded and walked away. My friends didn't know why I paused after saying it. I didn't explain. The year before, dinner away from home had felt like I was leaving something behind. This time, it just felt like dinner. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.